Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. There's already a rift. Former Cowboy slams Micah Parsons' comments about new DC Mike Zimmer. Superstar talent Micah Parsons was absent for a large portion of the offseason because of his travel affiliation with the NFL. He went traveling in Japan with Houston Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, hosting training camps for young teenagers in Japan. Moreover, the three-time All-Pro decided that he would refrain from attending the OTAs because he wanted to pursue his own training regime. The defensive edge has been one of the greatest talents since his emergence in 2021 out of Penn State. Parsons is set to enter the fourth year of his rookie contract, but there is already talk of him becoming the highest-paid non-QB in the NFL. Justin Jefferson set the market price for non-QBs with a $35 million APY, and Parsons is expected to eclipse that figure. During an interview with the media at mandatory minicamp, Parsons explained how he and the new DC Mike Zimmer have said just 20 words to one another. Furthermore, he implied that he understands that Zimmer has an old-school approach and it is his way or the highway. The three-time Pro Bowler explained that Zimmer has never had someone like Parsons. On NFL on ESPN, Marcus Spears frowned upon the comments made by Parsons during the offseason program. "To me, this stuff that kinda defines Dallas. This is a soundbite that you could literally take away from this and say there is already a rift in the ideology of what they want to do," the former defensive edge for the Cowboys explained. For Micah to say that with Mike Zimmer coming in, you don't know if either one of them based on what the other says is going to take it personal, and now you already have a rift in the worker relationship before you can even get started. "I just don't like this from the standpoint of Dallas, especially when you're talking about your star defensive player coming in with a new defensive coordinator coming in." Spears berated the comments that Parsons articulated during his media interview and implied that it is bad for the franchise's PR. Mike Zimmer has replaced the outgoing Dan Quinn, who earned his second head coaching role of his career with the Washington Commanders. The former Minnesota Vikings head coach reportedly runs a very tight ship and received backlash from his current player Eric Kendricks. Furthermore, the linebacker claimed that his DC ran a fear-based culture at the Vikings, but provided context to his resurfaced comments. Kendricks is excited to work with Zimmer again, and their partnership saw the former earn his first and only All-Pro status in 2019. Parsons is on the trajectory to be a Hall of Famer but must not let his ego interfere with his new DC. Ultimately, Zimmer expects everyone to fall in line and follow his regime to every fine detail, with no preferential treatment. Jerry Jones seems to have his off-season agenda in priority order, with CeeDee Lamb topping the list. The star wide receiver is heading into his fifth-year rookie option and has been a holdout during the OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Rival Justin Jefferson has inked a blockbuster 4-year $35 million APY deal to become the most expensive non-QB. NFC East news: C.J. Stroud raved about the latest hire for the Commanders. The culture overhaul in Washington continues. The Washington Commanders made another impressive hire on Monday. This time, General Manager Adam Peters made a hire that directly impacts his rookie class, specifically quarterback Jayden Daniels. Washington hired Houston Texans Director of Team Development Dylan Thompson for a similar role. The Commanders parted ways with Malcolm Bracken earlier this offseason. Bracken had served as Washington's Senior Director of Player Development. Let's briefly explain the role. First, it's not a front office move or a coaching move. In this role, Thompson is responsible for helping all players, specifically younger players, acclimate to the NFL. A former college quarterback at South Carolina, Thompson made a positive impact on last year's NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, C.J. Stroud, with the Texans. According to Aaron Wilson of KPRC2 in Houston, here's what Stroud said about Thompson last year. "I think I grew tremendously, man," said Stroud. "I know he's going to be mad at me for this." Dylan Thompson. "Oh my gosh, Dylan is one of the best human beings that I've ever met in my life. There's a ton of people, great people in this organization, but DT has been the main person. More from Stroud on Thompson. You talk about a brother like to somebody who loves you no matter what happens on that field, you can feel that. I just appreciate that, and now he's going to be mad at me, but, man, he's a great person, and really one of the reasons why I feel like we were very successful this year. Giants writers share noteworthy takeaways from New York's OTAs. John Schmeelk, there's only so much you can learn from spring workouts. As Brian Daboll pointed out each time he spoke to the media over the last couple months, OTAs are more about teaching and less about competition. Because contact isn't allowed, I wouldn't draw any firm conclusions from what I've seen on the practice field in terms of player performance. That doesn't mean there wasn't anything to learn. Here are a few bullet points. Barring a setback, Daniel Jones is going to be ready to play in Week 1, and I would be shocked if he is not a full participant at the start of training camp. He looks great moving around and throwing the football. Jermaine Illuminor looks primed to be a guard. There was some question whether he would just be a swing tackle, but the team seems very happy to use him inside. Wide receiver Malik Nabers looks just as explosive as he did at LSU, and tight end Theo Johnson's testing numbers match what I have seen in terms of his athleticism on the field during OTAs. Dan Salamone, my biggest takeaway from this spring is that the Giants are going to rely on their front four getting after the quarterback, and if they can do so, that has been a good formula throughout franchise history. Led by newcomer Brian Burns, fellow two-time Pro Bowler Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau, fresh off his first double-digit sack campaign, the group has the potential to be not only the strength of the defense, but also the identity of the team. All under the age of 27, they will lead Bowen's new defense for the foreseeable future. Despite the non-contact rules, we've seen and heard them start to develop the chemistry that will be necessary across the board. I think last year the interior and the edge weren't cohesive, Thibodeau said. Now it's going to start to work like clockwork. That's the maturity. That's where I'm growing as a player and we're growing as a defense, being able to play as a unit. The coaching shift in Philadelphia has provided some interesting discourse. The worst part of Jalen Hurts' answer is that it wasn't an answer. The Eagles quarterback was given an opportunity to strike at 300 yards dead center down the middle of the fairway after the team's recent minicamp when he was tossed a softball on Nick Sirianni's shift away from offensive leader to full-blown CEO coach. Hurts said before considering the question during a lengthy, somewhat awkward pause. I mean, that's a great question, I don't know that I know the answer to it. For a 25-year-old on-field leader with 56 career NFL starts, including a Super Bowl under his belt, answering that should have been the equivalent of a bunny in the lane for an NBA 7-footer. Mike Greenberg makes a prediction about Dak Prescott's contract situation. Dak Prescott's contract situation is hanging over the Dallas Cowboys like a dark cloud, and the team has had the quietest offseason in the NFL, so there hasn't been anything done to distract us all from the fact that the team's franchise QB is heading into a contract year. Dallas has done little to inspire any confidence that a deal will get done, and Mike Greenberg seems to agree with that sentiment. Greenberg appeared on the Pat McAfee show today and said, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to get a deal done with Dak Prescott, before adding, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent and he's going to make a lot of money. Dak has a $55.45 million cap hit this season in the final year of a 4-year, $160 million extension he signed years ago, and while the Cowboys have expressed mild interest in getting a deal done, it doesn't feel nearly as inevitable as other recent extensions around the league, such as Justin Jefferson's deal with the Minnesota Vikings or Jared Goff's deal with the Detroit Lions. Head coach Mike McCarthy is also heading into a contract year as well, so it's entirely possible the Cowboys front office is simply giving this foundation one more shot to make a decent playoff run before cutting ties entirely and rebuilding. Prescott is coming off one of his best seasons, but this franchise is only judged on its success in the postseason, which hasn't happened in decades. We'll see what contract year Dak has in store for us soon. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Dak Prescott? Leave your opinion in the comments.